3 is your favorite Led Zeppelin album?
Are you being ironic right now? You're saying that as like those are not good songs?
They're good songs. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're not better than Boogie with Stu.
They're not better than Boogie with Stu? You know what sucks on Physical Graffiti? Bron, your R. That is a complete waste of 2 minutes. Pointless excursion. Wow. You said at the beginning of the video, oh, everybody knows we're just gonna love Led Zeppelin on this video, la la la. I was like, hold your shit, Brandon. I don't love this record. I don't.
I'm now sad drinking my shit. I'm now drinking my troubles away.
Me personally, I don't think it's that impressive. I think obviously he's playing really cool shit.
I have a strong feeling I'm gonna need to physically harm you. Physical graffiti all over your ass.
You're talking about the 2 minutes of Junior Page noodling by himself.
He's not noodling. It's a composition. It's like revolutionary.
Ron, your R stomp.
No, Boogie was Stu, dude.
I'm gonna delete this video. Yeah.
I don't know if I can be friends with you anymore, man.
What's up, everybody? To another episode of Playback. My name is Nate.
My name is Brendan.
What's up? Today we're talking about another album, Led Zeppelin's Physical Graffiti. Brandon, why are we talking about Physical Graffiti today?
Yeah, man. So I picked this album to talk about because I know both me and you are huge Led Zeppelin heads, huge Led Zeppelin fans. This is like one of the biggest, baddest bands of all time. Of course, we have to talk about Led Zeppelin at some point.
Yes.
If we're doing a thing where we're talking about albums and great music, you know?
Yeah.
But I picked Physical Graffiti because I think it is the most interesting discussion out of all their albums. Because Led Zeppelin as a band has a whole bunch of albums that are just universally gold standard, best albums ever, and they're really famous and they've been talked about a lot. I don't know how much like new info there is, new insight there is left to give on those. I don't even know how much new insight there is to give on Physical Graffiti either. Hopefully a little bit, I hope.
Welcome to the show. Stick around.
It's also not one of the albums that people generally, like a lot of people dislike and people listen to a little bit less. Like I think like Presence, Into the Outdoor, like they're less popular.
I think this is like right in the middle.
Exactly.
Which makes it really interesting to talk about.
Yeah, this is kind of like a middle. It's both middle of the road, but in some ways, I'll talk more about it later, but I'm in the camp of like, there's a really good point to be made that this is their best and greatest one. That's not like a universally true, universally held opinion, but I think you could argue it. When like Into the Outdoor, I don't really feel like, if you're arguing that is their greatest one, it's like, that's your opinion, straight up. Wrong. So that's why I picked it. So what were your impressions listening to it this time in preparation for this?
I have struggled with this album since I was a kid. Some of the best Led Zeppelin material that exists on this album. But it exists side by side with a lot of filler throwaway shit. There's a single album masterpiece hidden within this double album. And there's a lot of stuff that they brought back from older albums and kind of threw on here that I think doesn't belong.
Yeah. Like what you're referring to, right? This album is kind of like a collection of things that they recorded over like a 4-year period. A lot of the songs were recorded specifically during recording sessions for this album.
Yep.
But a lot of it is pieces of past sessions that they never ended up using.
Yeah, and there's a reason why they had to do it the way they did it, and we'll get into it into the video. But first, I want to hear, what about you? What were your impressions?
I was expecting to sort of experience it exactly like how you just said, because that's like my memory of it. This may be, I mean, I say so many hyperbolic things all the time, I'm aware. But I mean this. Literally, this might be the album that I have heard more times than any other album.
I don't believe you.
But I haven't really listened through it intensely for maybe about 5 years until now. And so my memory of it was, this has some of Led Zeppelin's greatest songs, and there's a bunch of filler. Mm-hmm. But this time when I listened to it, I felt like I kind of like got it.
Yeah.
I kind of like understood why all of the material that's on here is on here. Mm-hmm. And it all kind of felt like it fit.
We're experiencing this album like the movie Tenet, like we're experiencing it like backwards from each other.
Yeah.
Like I used to feel that way about this
Yes.
album. I used to feel like Physical Graffiti, the fucking double album masterpiece, the biggest, baddest record ever.
You used to feel that way?
That's how I used to love this album. And as I've gotten older, and you know, it's been years since I've listened to it, but lately, like the very differing, disparate styles between what they were working on that was brand new to them versus what they added on to this record to kind of fill out the double album length. It feels more different to me now than it ever has.
When I listen to this album, I feel like I can pick out the new ones, the ones that are fresh, of where they're at creatively in 1974 when they're recording this, 75. Yep. And
they had a very defined sound. They were in a totally unique headspace. Their guitar tones were different. The instrumentation they were using was different. Their influences were different. They weren't a blues rock band anymore. They were like a Middle Eastern, like prog band who used to play blues. They're night and day different from some of the shit that is included on this record.
That, by the way, is one of my favorite things about this record, is that it does not have a, like, You Shook Me style old school blues song on it.
Same.
I love that. That's my least favorite Led Zeppelin.
It's, you know, so inherent to Led Zeppelin, that kind of blues rock style, because it's where they came from. It's the kind of music they all loved, you know, and they all excelled at playing it together. But it's like, it's totally unsustainable for a band like them to play 1-4-5 riff rock blues jams forever. By this point, they were way beyond that shit. They were too good for it, which makes including some of that old stuff, it's just like, it's like a drag on the whole project.
Right. Yeah. So Led Zeppelin for their first few albums had kind of a thing, sort of like how the Beatles would have one song that Ringo sings on every album.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin would have one, like, just traditional style blues song. That I'm pretty sure literally all of them were just straight up covers, right? I don't think they wrote any of those.
I think it's been proven in court that those are just straight up like rip-offs of like older blues songs.
And even some of the songs that that they claimed that they wrote were basically covers.
Was a legendary rock anthem stolen from another band? Today, Led Zeppelin guitarist Jimmy Page took the stand in a copyright infringement lawsuit.
Page testified he first learned of the comparison made between the two songs on the internet. Here are the disputed portions of the two songs back to back. What do you think?
But here they stopped. And I think maybe the album before this, which is what, Houses of the Holy, that also does not have a blues song. But I was always under the impression that In My Time of Dying is a Bob Dylan song. Am I wrong about that?
So I didn't realize that until today, but apparently it's like a reworking of like a really, really early Dylan tune from like his first album.
It's pretty amazing how he's not listed as a writer on the song.
Typical Led Zeppelin fare. I don't know why you're surprised. Given the time period, I have serious doubts that even Bob Dylan wrote that song. I'm sure they're attributing this version to that version, but if it's the early folk singer 60s period of Dylan, I doubt it's even like a song he wrote. It's probably some traditional or something.
How do you do that? Like, hey, you know what we should do? We should play a Bob Dylan tune. Great song, lads. Who wrote it?
Me,
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a less complicated time, I guess, where they kind of just could wink and nod at each other and no one cared. But now people care. Now they've gotten in trouble for all this shit. All this shit. They're like, yeah, you owe us money for that.
Jimmy Page, the guitar player. Okay. He's like the leader of the band. He's the dude who originally got them all together.
Former member of the Yardbirds. Excellent session guitarist.
Well, they were all session players, right?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the origin of it.
I found Robert Plant first. He recommends John Bonham. And so then we got a drummer, and then John Paul Jones calls me up and says, I hear you might be putting a band together, can I join?
Jimmy Page put the band together of a bunch of session players, right? So he got John Bonham, who's the drummer. Big, bombastic sound, huge, a very important part to the sound of Led Zeppelin. You got John Paul Jones, who's the bass player, who's he's like Shakespeare, he's like Mozart, like the scientist, the artistic one, right?
Yeah, he's a much more nuanced touch.
Yeah.
than like everyone else.
And then I think the masterstroke of the entire thing is for the singer, for the front man, he got Robert Plant.
Yeah.
Who is like the ultimate male sex symbol.
Yeah, he really is.
He's the bimbo. He's a himbo. The beautiful,
for sure.
Sex personified.
Yeah.
You know?
Of all rock stars, I would be willing to believe Robert Plant in particular has probably had the wildest sex of any rock star.
That's a high bar, but he's got to be up there, man. He's
got to be in the conversation.
The Led Zeppelin shark incident.
That was the wildest thing I've ever been involved in or saw in my life.
Mood shark.
And his voice, holy shit. I mean, way to bury the lead. It's like his fucking voice is like legendary. Whether or not you like his voice is a different discussion than whether or not he was good at singing. And I think it's not debatable that he was good at singing. I think he was inarguably great at singing, but whether you like the quality of his voice or not is a different discussion. But if there's anybody that feels a little left behind on this record, it is Robert Plant for me.
I agree with you.
It's weird because he's like occasionally brilliant and used brilliantly, more to put it more precisely. But there are some songs like I'll say In My Time of Dying, he's kind of just trying to keep up with this jam, and he's like kind of trying to justify being there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's a good observation. When I listen to In My Time of Dying, there's a big part of why I don't like it. I really am like, why is this guy singing?
It's not a song.
Like
it's like a really amazing jam.
Right. It's an instrumental piece. But we have Robert Plant. He has to do something.
Yeah.
Led Zeppelin in general is like a highly debated band. A lot of people feel different ways. A lot of people feel greatest ever, and a lot of people feel most overrated ever.
As a band, I felt that aptly named, it never took off.
I cannot say enough about Led Zeppelin and the impact that they've had.
Very love or hate.
I haven't liked a single thing that they've done. I hate the fact that I'm ever even slightly compared to them.
To me, Led Zeppelin is like with the Stones and the Beatles.
It's a very hit or miss in terms of whether or not you like them.
According to legendary drummer Carmine Appice, Jimi Hendrix wasn't a fan of Led Zeppelin.
Well, I sort of don't trust anybody who doesn't like Led Zeppelin. You know?
And a lot of that comes down to things like Robert Plant's voice and the way that he sings, right? Because do you interpret it as genius and as passion, you know, just like pure uninhibited sexual energy? Or do you interpret it as he's covering up for he's just not that good and he's just a pretty dude who can put some rasp on his voice and sell millions of records? And it's the same about Jimmy Page's guitar playing.
Yes.
You could interpret it as he's like channeling the messages from the guitar gods, or you could interpret it as he is sloppy.
He's got a bag of tricks and he knows how to show off, and he's really good at that. That's how I feel about my guitar playing, and that's why I love Jimmy Page so much, is because I feel like
he's the champion for all of us who know a couple tricks.
Yes.
and
get away with fucking murder and get away with murder as guitar players.
Yes. He's our guy. Yeah. John Bonham's drumming also.
Yes.
Some people are like, he is undoubtedly the greatest drummer of all time. Like the power and the energy and the like fury that he plays with and everything is so funky and everything. Sometimes he would play with 2 drumsticks in each hand, right? Giving the song 4 Sticks its title. And then there's John Paul Jones.
Yeah.
I have never heard anybody have a take that is like, you know what? John Paul Jones actually sucks.
Overrated John Paul Jones. Not good. Yeah. No one's ever said that. Yeah. If anything, he's the best pure musician in the band, for sure, I think. He's definitely the only one you cannot make the argument that he's more style over substance.
Exactly. He's all substance.
Yes, he's pure substance, which I feel like
is... But then he wore some fantastic outfits.
Well, sure, of course. He's in Led Zeppelin. He's like the glue musically in a lot of ways. Because like I like imagine if you had a casting sheet, like I imagine Jimmy Page must have when he was putting this fucking band together.
Probably did.
Yeah, he's like, I need to find 3 other Jimmy Pages on their respective instruments. So he found the Jimmy Page of singing in Robert Plant, without a doubt. He found the Jimmy Page of playing drums, without a doubt. Yeah, and then imagine if he went out and found like fucking Geddy Lee or something.
Yeah, dude, it wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked. It would have been way too much. It
wouldn't have worked.
Everybody trying to like show off at the same time. It's like, it would have been bullshit. You know, it would have been, everything people say about Led Zeppelin, every detractor of Led Zeppelin would be right in that instance if they had some super showy bass player, you know.
Also, he played all the keyboard instruments and stuff.
He's played like mandolins and shit, and Mellotron on this record, which is amazing.
Multi-instrumental guy. He's doing all kinds of things. Meanwhile, the other 3 dudes only do their thing. But yeah, man, him being present in the band, it undercuts the claim that Led Zeppelin is only showy style over substance.
Thank you, my friends, for finally remembering my phone number. Thank you. Bye-bye.
They were like this miraculous grouping of the most incredible musicians on each of their respective instruments. Where now thinking about it, I think it's way more nuanced than that. I think it's clear that that's not quite...
I don't feel that way anymore.
No, that's not quite the case. But I still don't think that there's a grouping of 4 guys that is like as like impressive as this grouping. I think like maybe aside from like bands like Rush, maybe like Rush is just like, they're so good. All of them are so incredible at what they do. But even that, it's so much more like technical than Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin is like all like feeling and emotion, and there's much more like heart on the sleeve than a band like, you know, than like a lot of like proggy bands that you know, you could argue are like technically better than Led Zeppelin.
Well, I think that I don't consider Led Zeppelin to be a band that legitimately should be considered to be prog or progressive in their music. They intentionally went into that domain of rock, but I don't think that they succeeded. I don't think that they were real, like what prog rock actually is. I think Led Zeppelin only just like attempted it. They were like a band that was too imprecise to be truly playing prog rock.
Error. Led Zeppelin not found. Led Zeppelin is not prog rock.
When I hear Led Zeppelin's later albums, I can hear that older bluesy jammy band in there still.
Yeah, they never could excise that from their system properly enough to take a real swing at prog. Like
they were never those kinds of musicians.
No. Yeah.
Look at what Robert Plant has done after Led Zeppelin.
He's gone back to where Led Zeppelin started.
Exactly. It's all like soulful and very like spirit central music, not brain central music. You know, like that's who he is, and that's who they were.
Which is kind of what makes physical graffiti. Or when I say physical graffiti is interesting, I'm specifically talking about the material they recorded at Headley Grange in 1974.
Let's talk about those sessions.
Leading up to physical graffiti, you have the pinnacle of the blues rock thing, right? Which was Led Zeppelin IV. And then after that, they start to experiment in Houses of the Holy, which House of the Holy as a whole is like such a successful marriage of like the blues thing that Led Zeppelin came from with the new sights and sounds and experiences that they'd gathered from touring the world and hearing all this new music from around the world at the time. It has a real identity to it. And that's what I love about it. And you could kind of say that about all of their albums through House of the Holy. I mean, Zeppelin III was like their folky Canyon album, which is a beautiful record, you know. Led Zeppelin II is like their big rock album, and same with Led Zeppelin I. Those are kind of flip sides of each other.
I have Out on the Tiles stuck in my head because you brought up Led Zeppelin III.
That song's so good.
The one song on that album that has nothing to do with the entire Canyon vibe.
Isn't Immigrant Song on 3 as well?
Immigrant Song is on 3.
I think 3 is better than 4, honestly. I think 4 is...
Jesus Christ. Get out of it. That is... How dare... I'm going to fly to Nashville and slap you. Oh my...
3's kind of low-key my favorite. I don't know.
Dude, we're talking about a band who's made some of the, like, the most, like, creative and influential musical recordings ever. How is Bronny Roar song? Oh, there you walking with me, something.
I love that song.
Like a leaf is to a tree, so fine. Yeah, I do too, but it's just a fucking jam.
Yeah. So is Boogie with Stu.
Exactly. That's what people don't like about Boogie with Stu.
Is just not a good
They're just
jam.
Sitting around.
Bronny Roar is a cool stam.
The kick drum is just boom, 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 boom.
It's awesome. I love that. I love that about it. It's great. Okay, obviously we should have fucking picked Led Zeppelin 3. Clearly. Maybe we should just dive into my problems with physical graffiti.
Okay.
So,
here we go.
Okay. Physical Graffiti is one of the weakest Led Zeppelin albums. Is how I feel. And here's
we have not like we have a policy. We don't like pre-share with each other what our takes are on these albums before we discuss them. Yeah. Here's why, because I probably would have refused to do this if I had known. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So
Go ahead.
Here's the thing. I have a million reasons why, and I feel like I'm not gonna be able to get through them now because of how mortified you are by my initial take.
Okay, I'll try to rein it in. I'll try my best to respect you as a human and respect your opinion, respect your grant you the right to have your own perspective.
Yes.
I will try.
Thank you.
My best. I can't promise that I'll succeed.
I feel really strongly about this, and I don't know if you're gonna budge me on this. If Bron Ur and Black Country Woman and Boogie with Stu were not good enough to be featured on Led Zeppelin III, Led Zeppelin IV, or Houses of the Holy,
fair point.
What all of a sudden makes them good enough? And Jimmy Page even says that. He said, I didn't want to include Boogie with Stu on a single standalone record. I feel like it didn't really belong on a single record, but all of a sudden on a double album, it fits. Why? I like when an album is a snapshot of an artist at a time, at a specific time. I want to hear, what is Led Zeppelin up to right now when I bought the record? I don't want to hear a bunch of shit they recorded 5 years ago. Like, the only two songs that are holdovers from previous sessions that make sense are The Rover, which I think is a great tune, and fits the current songwriting style and sounds and headspace that they were in. And the song Houses of the Holy is the other song that fits the kind of physical graffiti mold.
Okay, good. Because I couldn't handle you saying something like that. The song Houses of the Holy isn't good enough to be on an album.
I don't think it's not
one of their best songs.
It's great. It's great.
Ever.
It's great.
It's one of Led Zeppelin's best songs, period.
Here's what I'm going to say, and here's kind of the gist of my hot take, I guess, is this should have been a single album. But the problem is to include not even all of the new material they recorded at Headley Grange, even to include most of it, they well exceeded the time length requirements and limitations of vinyl at the time.
Yeah, how many minutes can there be on a single LP?
If you're really pushing it on each side, you can cram in 22 or 23 minutes on a side. But in order to really cram it in, you have to sacrifice fidelity, which is another thing that I think that they did on this record that kind of bugs me.
Right.
And
if they didn't cram in so many extra songs, they could have had a higher fidelity.
It would have been a higher fidelity. And the best way to reduce the fidelity is you cut out the low end.
Around about half revolution before the music actually comes up to the cutter head, it goes into a computer and it thinks, well, I've just cut this shape groove, but there's a load of bass coming up which needs more space, and the groove's going to sort of swing left to right laterally and need much more room on the disc. If you've got a long side and you're trying to get the grooves really close to each other, if you get a sudden bit of bass, it can crash into the previous groove and jump. So you need to allow for it. Now, if you allowed for a massive bass excursion all the time, you'd be wasting disc space and you run out of room. So you have to try and be efficient with it.
I don't know. Personally, I'm not missing it because like music, to me, music that came out before the late 80s, like I completely forgive a missing low end. It's just a thing that you accept due to the realities of the recording technology and the recording methodology back then too. And I definitely forgive it here because it's hard rock. It's a style of music where those low frequencies are not a deal breaker.
I bring it up only because I think it kind of supports my point that there's too much shit on here, and I don't think they would have had to do that had there been less shit. But there's a really good reason for why they included all the older material. It's because they had to, because they recorded 3 sides worth and they needed to fill up the 4th side. Otherwise, they couldn't even justify half of the new material they recorded, right?
If they were going to add in new songs interspersed with their Headley Grange recordings, I think the way that they arrange those songs is really smart. They let there still be an identity of the Headley Grange sessions that goes through and things are interspersed, but never in a way where you get too far away from that feeling. You're always coming back there. It's kind of like if like a a movie is told with like little flashback moments. You never stay in a flashback too long. You always come back to the main frame story, and you can follow it. You know, this feels sort of like that. Like there's little black and white moments that flash back to the past, and then the story continues. Like for example, the greatest album ever made. Period. You know the one that I'm talking about, right?
Of course, you're about to say, yeah. Of course, we both know. Let's say it at the same time. 3, 2, 1. Headset. Okay, let's try it again. Take 2. 3, 2, 1.
Wait, hang on. I'm thinking too much about Led Zeppelin. What is George Harrison's album called?
All Things Must Pass. See, I don't think All Things Must Pass is the best record ever. And for the same reason, because there's a whole bunch of filler that doesn't need to be there.
But this is why I'm bringing this up. The thing that the detractors say about it, which is that all of that filler stuff is just tacked on at the end.
Yeah.
Right? So there's an album, and then at the end, once the album is done, there's just a bunch of crap.
I like that, because I can just treat it as a double album, which is what I've always done.
They extended the whole story of this thing
They had to
be the length of 2.
They had to, because there was only 2 ways they could have gone. They could have either made some really, really hard decisions and cut this down to a single album, which would have been really fucking hard to do. Although I will say one of the easiest things they could have done to help.
All the Headley Grange shit, take out In My Time of Dying, done.
No.
Maybe put in Houses of the Holy.
Look, I'm not going to say that's what I would do, but they could have done something like that. Sure. They could have fucking shortened a lot of this stuff. There's like whole tales of songs for like 2 minutes where I'm like, this is awesome and I love hearing Led Zeppelin play, but this album's 83 minutes long.
I don't understand how you could say that and defend In My Time of Dying, which is the biggest offender of what you're talking about. Like it has 2 musical ideas and it is twice as long.
Maybe it's the fact that I've played along with that track so many times on slide that like I just feel in my bones like how fun that song is to play. Maybe I'm conflating that with how enjoyable it is to listen to.
I can relate to that because the music on this album is so deeply entrenched and connected with my like past life and my childhood, and it's connected with emotions and experiences and stuff. Absolutely. Like there's no other reason why either one of us would get so passionate and like really honestly feel like I can't be friends with you anymore because of the way that you feel about this music, because it's so closely connected to our childhoods like that. You know?
It should be way shorter. I agree with you on that. I love that song, but I do think it should be way, way shorter. It could have been 8 minutes like the other ones, you know, like it could, I'm sure it could have been, or they could have fucking rearranged it and just made it less insane, you know, and
or left it off.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
This is where you're wrong. I'm sorry.
That's the worst song on this album.
Oh my God. Okay.
Why is it 11 minutes? Why do they sing the verse section that is like 2 minutes long? Why do they do it 6 times, Nate?
You know what sucks on Physical Graffiti? Bron, your R. That is a fucking complete waste of 2 minutes. Pointless excursion.
I can't even talk to you anymore.
I think that song is so boring.
You what?
Dude, it's one of the greatest guitar performances ever recorded.
It's not.
How does he play it? It sounds like 3 different instruments, one of which is a guitar, and what it actually is a single man playing one guitar.
It's really cool.
It's fucking mind-blowing.
It's really cool. I'm not gonna get you.
It's the closest thing that guitar has to like fucking like a Chopin fucking piano piece.
No, I disagree.
Mozart. Wrong.
Look, if you are more familiar with the Led Zeppelin live show stuff, you know how like they would let John Bonham just do a drum solo for like 10 minutes so everyone could like have a breather. That's all Bron Your R is. They each would do shit like that throughout the show. They would give each other breathers. And Jimmy Page had other ones. He had one called like White Summer, I think.
Yes, Jimmy Page would periodically come out and demonstrate to the entire world how he's like the most fucking gifted guitar player on the face of the planet other than Jimi Hendrix.
Very cool thing to do during a live show. Serves its purpose really well. On a record, I don't get it. I don't. And on okay, I'm not saying it's not. I'm not saying it's not good necessarily. But on this record, why is it on this record? I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Because it is.
Why is Boogie with Stu on this record?
Beautiful, amazing piece of music. It's like an incredible sound recording that belongs in a museum.
That belongs in a museum. So do you.
Play it. Play it.
Well, I can't
Grab
play
your
it.
guitar.
I can't play it.
Grab your guitar.
What I'm getting at is, as a song on a record, a little 2-minute interlude. Get out of here. I'm bored. Like, save this shit for the box set, dude. I don't give a fuck about it. I don't give a fuck about Brown Your R. I don't give a fuck about Boogie with Stu.
By the way, just to temper my anger, just to temper for the record of how angry I am at you, I think really mainly it started with saying that Led Zeppelin III is the best. I can let that go.
Yeah.
You're entitled to your opinion about that. I think the thing that I'm so mad at is that you included Brown Your R in with the rest of the songs on this album that are clearly filler, that could be gone and it would not hurt the album.
Hold on, bro. You're talking about the 2 minutes of Jimmy Page noodling by himself in the middle of the record.
All right, I was trying to extend an olive branch, but
Okay,
you want to you just wipe your ass with the olive leaves and wave it over the parapet.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry.
Just like toss it back in the mud and say, "Fuck your olive branch." All right, that's cool.
I guess I sort of did that. I'm sorry. Okay, keep going. What
No, it's fine.
You're saying what started your anger was saying that I liked Led Zeppelin III too much. Oh my God, how controversial.
Okay, I'll let that go. I can forgive that.
I think if Brown Your R had been on Led Zeppelin III, I probably would. It would make more sense. I would get it. I'd be like, okay, this is like the thing they're doing right now. This is cool. But in the middle, I'm like, why is this random track from Led Zeppelin III in the middle of this awesome prog rock album?
You never knew it was from Led Zeppelin III until you looked it up. You didn't know that. Don't pretend like you did. All right. I can pick out the new ones.
You liar! You know what I'm gonna do about this? What? Nothing!
You didn't know that. Don't pretend like you did.
I didn't know that, but you know what I also didn't know? I didn't understand why I didn't like this album until now. Now I know why I don't like it that much. It's because it's a weird pastiche of 4 albums. Instead of doing a double album, they should have made the hard decisions and cut this shit down to a single record. And the way they could have done that is make a 5-song album. A 5-song album that would have been 40 minutes long. And I think it would have been a really cool, like, big statement that shows this is the band we are right now at this point in time. We're not doing some weird B-sides, half bastardized double album.
I'll tell you what would have happened if they released that. You know what happened to them when they released In Through the Outdoor? How kind of like the whole balloon deflated? That would have happened right then if they released that.
I can see how, I see the thought, which is let's take people on a trip, take people on a journey through all of the styles we can do.
Yeah.
I prefer albums that have a more central identity, I guess. I don't care for stuff that is like so scattershot.
I hear more than just the fact that they were released together. I actually hear a through line of like a concept, an idea, and a story. And I think the pastiche nature of it is part of that, you know, like kind of like Pulp Fiction is not told in order.
Right.
But that's like part of the way in which this particular story is being told. It's like, all right, just take out all the parts that don't have to do with the briefcase and just make a different movie then. Just tell me the movie about the briefcase, please.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell me about this briefcase. Just tell me the story.
If they happen to collect a bunch of shit from years past that all fit really well together, I promise you I wouldn't make these complaints. To me, it really is. I feel like it's like I'm listening to Physical Graffiti and then it's constantly being interrupted by shitty B-sides that they left off of their other albums for a good reason.
I don't hear it though. It doesn't sound that way to me. Let's now talk about our common ground things. Let's now talk about like the things that we fucking love. Let's talk about the Headley Grange songs specifically.
Sure.
Because, except for In My Time of Dying, they're all fucking badass. What would you say like the few like the best songs on Physical Graffiti? What do you think?
Kashmir is the obvious one. It's like a momentous, legendary achievement in music history. I mean, it's like one of the greatest things ever put to tape, ever.
Now, true or untrue that Kashmir is your personal all-time favorite?
Yeah, I think it probably... Well, it was a great achievement.
The blending of styles, the odd time signature, the mellotron, the string section, the horns. I mean, like, it's so forward-thinking and progressive and interesting to listen to. It's like mind-boggling. Even on this record, like, it sounds sort of like the other Headley Grange stuff, but it's even a step above the other, like, current Physical Graffiti stuff on this album.
I do feel like it is kind of played out.
Yeah, I was going to say that too. It's a little, I mean, it's like a given, right? I mean, like it's it's the standout song on this.
Now when I listen to this album, I actually skip over it. I feel like I don't need to hear Kashmir like anymore.
It used to be just like this monolith, like in 2001, A Space Odyssey. Man approaches the fucking monolith on the moon for the first time, and it's like this mind-expanding thing where it's like man is encountering this alien. Musically, that's really what this felt like.
It was mysterious. I couldn't understand how these sounds were achieved.
Yeah, same. The guitars didn't sound like guitars. And the mellotrons were like the mellotron interspersed with real strings.
And guitars playing along with that also.
When you hear this for the first time, it is really hard to wrap your mind around what you're hearing. And then on top of that, there's like a weird odd time signature. I don't remember exactly what it is. The scale that they're playing in is like not something, that was common among, like, definitely among bluesy rock bands. You know, it's like, it's such a wildly like out of left field direction for them. I mean, you kind of can see the signs of it on Houses of the Holy. You kind of can hear that they're kind of projecting where they're going to go. It is a little played out at this point, but it is like, it's like Stairway to Heaven in that sense, that it's like, well, duh, yeah, Stairway to Heaven.
Similar to Kashmir, the played outness of Stairway to Heaven does not detract
from how good it is.
The quality of Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah, things don't get played out because they suck, right? They get played out because they're amazing.
No stairway. Denied.
So the other song. So you said there were two standouts to you. What's the other standout song?
Honestly, it might be In the Light for me.
My two standouts are In the Light and 10 Years Gone.
those are such like rich statements that they feel like they could be centerpieces of their own albums. Like like those two songs are most other bands' like best songs ever. The hierarchy of Led Zeppelin songs, I doubt many people would like kind of rank those like towards the top.
That's right, man. They're not their most popular.
Definitely not.
People don't bring them up.
No.
Very often in terms when you're talking about greatest Led Zeppelin songs, especially in the light.
Yeah.
John Paul Jones is just on another level, and is sort of like finally center stage. You know, I mean, the first like minute and a half, he's the only one who's active.
This is the first time where it feels like John Paul Jones is like the band leader of Led Zeppelin. And I think that's only like partially true, because really, according to the band, it was really like John Bonham. He contributed so much to the songs that they gave him like a full credit as a songwriter. All that kind of like really musically like stilted, stunted, stopping, starting, syncopation kind of stuff, that's all Bonham apparently. But then all the textural stuff, the clavs and the synths and the mellotrons and all that kind of shit, that's all John Paul Jones. Those two in tandem kind of taking a step forward, like allowing Jimmy Page and Robert Plant to be accompaniment, really,
that's new for them.
Yeah, it is new, and I love it. Like, I love. I think it allows, like, Jimmy Page in particular, like, he is kind of falling back into a slightly more like supportive band role than like on something like Led Zeppelin II or something. You know?
It seems like there's fewer guitar solos, and the guitar solos that do happen, they're still
awesome,
fucking incredible, but they're less the point of the song.
Yeah, and
like in Led Zeppelin II,
the guitar stuff that's like more impressive on this is his tones that he's getting.
And the arrangement too. So one of the things that really stood out to me on this most recent listen through is how in a lot of these songs there's like 4 different electric guitar parts that are all happening, and they're not playing. It's not stacking. It's not doubling things. Some of them have different effects on them. Like some have reverb or delay on them, and some don't. So some are in a Leslie speaker. Some are not, and they're all playing different parts, sort of like how different parts of an orchestra would interact with each other. The guitar is not the focus of the song. It's no less like complex and innovative and like big and daring still, but it's like in context of what everybody else is playing, and what specifically John Bonham and John Paul Jones are playing, it blends. It's an equal third of the music instead of what those other two guys are doing supporting the Jimmy Page show anymore.
You know, by the very nature of us featuring this album, we think you should at least listen to this. But would you recommend it, is the question.
Totally, man. Definitely. I mean, to me, Led Zeppelin is like in there with the Beatles. And should you watch Quentin Tarantino's movies?
Right.
You know, like if you're into comedy, should you watch Mel Brooks? If you're into film, should you watch Stanley Kubrick's movies? Yeah, you should listen to Led Zeppelin. If you're into music, man, it's central stuff, and this is like one of the big ones. So, I mean, I think if you're a lover of music and you have never heard Physical Graffiti, you should listen to it. But here's my thing that I'll say about me recommending it to you. You should listen to this several times.
Oh yeah.
You know,
This is a big bite to take off.
Yeah, man.
Led Zeppelin worked their whole careers to arrive at this place. And without the context of the previous 5 albums, which are some of the best albums ever made, like this kind of won't really make a lot of sense, especially Houses of the Holy. Houses of the Holy really like leads directly into this in a way that like you have to at least be familiar with that before you dive too deep into this one, I think.
How about you? Would you recommend that people listen to Physical Graffiti?
I would recommend it, and particularly the new original stuff that they were working on when they were making this album, which you can hear when you listen to it. Once you're really familiar with this record, you'll be able to parse apart the stuff that is new to them at the time and the stuff that was kind of, a little bit older from older albums.
I can pick out the new ones.
And I think in particular, the new stuff they were working on at that time was some of the most exciting music that they ever made. It's kind of the peak of Led Zeppelin in a lot of ways. Like they didn't get any better after this.
Ooh, this is the pinnacle. Led Zeppelin is going up and up and up and up, and then there's Physical Graffiti, and so after this,
it's over.
They start to go down.
Yeah, it's over.
This is the height of Led Zeppelin. Right?
They're not just trying to blow you away anymore. They know they can do that, and that's a tool in their toolbox that they use, but it's in conjunction with a lot of like smarter, more complex, interesting musical choices alongside some brand new influences from around the world that just like, filtered through them is just like, it's magic. It's absolutely magical, and it's Led Zeppelin at the height of their powers in a lot of ways. And regardless of if you feel like it's a little bit bloated like I do, it is still absolutely one of the like hallmark legendary albums of not only Led Zeppelin's career, but of the 70s.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, I feel less angry than I did earlier.
That's good. Yeah, we had.
I appreciate that olive branch. There are several Led Zeppelin albums that are definitely better than this, but that's only because of how perfect Led Zeppelin IV, Led Zeppelin II, Houses of the Holy are. Okay, but
3 is really good.
Not but
3 is also really good.
What?
Good. What?
What'd you say?
I was saying, their first like 5 records are better. Yeah, all 5 of them are just as good, better, really. But yeah, I was just adding on to what you're saying. I was saying, there's a lot of better albums than this one that they made. There's like 3 or 5, maybe 5, 4, 3, definitely 4, 3. 3 comes to mind. It's a number that comes to mind, at least. That I think is,
Does anybody remember Laughter?
Your mileage may vary, like if you're like Brandon, and I imagine most fans of rock music and Led Zeppelin in particular, it's fucking awesome. It's everything you could ever want. It's almost like a best of Led Zeppelin styles, in one record. And then there are jackasses like me that think that's stupid, but it is what it is.
Look, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that agree with you.
We'll see.
I mean, look at how many people like believe that like the Earth is flat and like